Welcome back to The Business of Defense, sponsored by ASMC on Federal News Network. I'm talking with Richard Manley, president of Thompson Gray. Thompson Gray is a highly skilled and technical team that focuses on consistent and professional support to their clients with services across audit support, business process management, program and acquisition support, resource management, public works, and training programs. Richard, I'd like to talk a little bit about your path to Thompson Gray. I know you started out in the federal sector. You mentioned you left and came to work, were recruited by Thompson Gray and came to work for them. Can you talk about that transition? What brought you to Thompson Gray, and maybe some of the challenges, opportunities you saw moving from the federal sector to the private sector?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I had 29 and a half years federal service, so I was able to take early retirement to get out. Sheila and I had been talking for about a year, and I was ready to do something else. I had a great federal career. I loved my federal career. I loved the people that I worked with and for, and that worked for me. It was a lot of fun. I was ready to do something a little bit different, and so when the opportunity presented and I could get out, I did get out. In terms of transitioning, it was not difficult for me, but it is different. When I assumed the role of, I started out as a vice president managing a business unit, but very soon thereafter I became president. And the corporate things that you have to think about. Now I'm responsible for profit and loss for the whole company, P&L, income statements, balance sheets, those kinds of things, negotiating with insurance companies about benefits, negotiating about management of our 401k, all those kinds of things you kind of had to work on. The thing I see that is that I had to do, and that I think most federal employees who come to work post-federal employment for contractors is recognize we're now no longer the customer, we're providing the service, and we have to make sure that we have that kind of attitude in approaching our customers. But it's been great. We've built, I think, a good management team. We've got, I believe, the right mix of seasoned managers, that is mid-career or beyond, and then we have a lot of really managers, say under 40 years old, that are growing their business units. They're innovative, they're creative, and I like that. I do like that a lot. We talked about during the break that currently the defense budget is pretty stable. It's on the uptick. I believe about 8% more than the president asked for is what is in the bill being contemplated today. So there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of money in the defense business. I think one of the things that sets our company apart is we don't think that every dollar has to come to us. There's plenty of money to go around for the industry base. What I do think that that we have to recognize is, in this time of inflation, we're really running the cost of labor up, because there's a finite pool of people who can do this work, do it competently, do it capably, and we're hiring from each other. So if I pay you $1 an hour more, and then a year from now, Company X pays you $1 an hour more than it's the same guy, he's just running up his salary, and we're ultimately running up the cost to the customer. I don't have a good answer for that. We all struggle with that, and that's just part of doing business in the environment that we're doing business in today.
Right. Yeah, I don't think, working on the federal government side, whether you're civilian or military, you're really not prepared to discuss profit and loss. And as you said, income statements, balance sheets, statement of cash flows, you're dealing mostly from a budgetary accounting perspective, not an accrual base. And I think it affects people's risk tolerance level. When you're on the government side, you can possibly take some risks because you can always get a transfer in or out.
Right.
It doesn't work that way on the private sector. So could you dig a little bit more into how you made that transition? From to understanding, I guess, how business operates, in the private sector side, and just the basics of understanding, what you should focus on to run a business.
So I was pretty fortunate in my federal career. The last 15, 18 years of my federal career, I had large service contracts that I was responsible for managing. I also like to think I'm a good, I'm not a really smart guy, but I'm a good relationship guy, I think. And I think that that's the key to it. So I would understand, I always try to understand my contractor's problems. I wanted my contractor to make a little money. I didn't want him to hold up the federal government, but I wanted to make a little money because otherwise it was not going to be a good experience. So when I transitioned, I think I recognized that we had to make money. That was the object of the game. And my great fear when I transitioned was, oh my goodness, we may not have people that want us to do work for them. Well, that thankfully has not been a problem, and I credit our employees and the great work they do for that. But thinking about what contract to put them under, what kind of contract it is, and that's another thing that I school our young managers on now. Part of what you have to understand is what kind of contract are you working under. If you're working under T&M, you might be able to make a little more money than a cost reimbursable contract or a firm. And if you're working under a firm fixed price task order, you've got all this risk that you have to account for in pricing. So learning those kinds of things are important as you transition, because you can win work, you can end up with work, and still not make money, and that's, you have to explain that to your bank who has your line of credit, or your boss who is wondering what happened to your net income, and so those kinds of things you have to think about, I would encourage people who are considering leaving federal service and going to industry, particularly to think about those kind of things. Also think about one of the things about transition is, and I want to be very careful to make a disclaimer here, there is a place in our industry for big publicly traded companies and for small business. If you go, depending on which one of those you go to, your role and how you do business may be different. When I left federal service, I had an executive officer and I had a dedicated admin. I probably hadn't done a travel voucher in 10 years or longer. Now I do my own expense reports. It won't hurt you. I mean, it's just part of what you do when you're working at a good small business, and we're a good small business. But you have to realize that there are some things that you have to do in the transition. Right now, when we do proposals and that sort of thing, I tap our technical experts to give us input, and then generally I craft all of the proposal input. And somebody asked me not long back, well, why do you do that? And the answer is nobody else to do it right now. I mean, as we grow, we'll add that talent, but I think that's one of the biggest messages I would give to people who are considering transitioning from the federal service to the private sector. It is different. It's not bad. It's great. I've enjoyed it. I wouldn't take anything for my transition. But it is different, and you have to be prepared to do things maybe differently than you have done them in the federal service. Now, I hope that answered your question.
No, absolutely. Did you have mentors that helped you along the way, or do you have mentors now?
I had mentors when I was in federal service. That there was a contracting officer. He's been retired a long, long time now. He helped me a lot understand how a contract worked and how contractors worked and how they thought. That was a tremendous help to me. So that was great. My boss today, Ron Gray, really, really smart. He can look at a document and say, that number doesn't make sense, and he'll be right 100% of the time. So that hones and sharpens your thought process about how you put work together, and equipping with the right tools, like we use a system called Uninet, which is a great system. We really like it. And we're using it from time card management all the way through contract management. It supports our payroll and billing functions. It's really a great system. We really like that, but the company was willing to make the investment in that, and it has passed a DCAA review. So those are the kinds of things that you have to think about. And you know, I've thought about this, and not to be disingenuous at all, but sometimes as a federal employee, we would push money around, and we would just think it's just a stack of paper, and it really was at the time, or a bundle of electrons as you were moving it electronically. But now, today, you know, I'm dealing with real money that pays real people, and I'm very conscious of the fact that if we have 220 odd people working for our company, say multiply that by a conservative number of 3 people in a household, that's over 600 people that are depending on us for food and shelter and income. And so you have to take that very, very seriously when you are when you're making that transition from federal service to industry. But I will say this, and we've had people that left mid-career and come to work for us. We've had people that left us and go to work in the federal service. And I tell them all the same thing. The good ones will never be unemployed. Never. They'll, one place or another, they'll, you know, it's only guys like me that they can't really do anything, that could really struggle to be unemployed. But the good ones, they'll never be unemployed, because our market is so demanding for the right kind of talent, and there is, you know, such a small universe that we're grappling with now to get the talent.
That's really a great story, and I want to thank you for sharing it, and congratulations on a very successful transition from the federal sector to industry. It's really great to hear.
Thank you very much. We look forward to having our booth and our reception, which had always been a big hit, at the next ASMC National.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank today's guest, Richard Manley, president of Thomson Gray, for his insights into Thomson Gray's strategy and capabilities, relationships with federal clients, and the defense contracting competitive landscape. Watch The Business of Defense again next month, where we bring you inside the companies working to drive transformation in the defense sector, to hear directly from their business leaders and to understand how they create value for their companies and their customers. I am Rich Brady, CEO of the American Society of Military Comptrollers, and I thank you again for joining us. I want to wish all of our viewers and listeners a Happy New Year and all the best in 2023. You are listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search ASMC.